Good day everyone, Gromos here with another DCS video, and this time I have just a quick video in which I want to take a quick look at the L-39 Albatross trainer / light attack aircraft, which is a beautiful little bird I think, as well as some other things. Now, trainers are a group of aircraft available in DCS, which I have not covered yet in any of my videos, and I figured it's time to change that. There are currently 3 planes of that type available in DCS. The L-39 of course, by Eagle Dynamics, as well as the Hawk by Aero and the C-101 by AvioDev. Now, the Hawk and the C-101 are still in beta, and I will take a closer look at them in a later video when they are more finished. The L-39 is out of beta, and a very fun aircraft to fly in my opinion. Though, to be fair, I haven't found one yet I didn't think was fun to fly in one way or another. So in this video I will take a look at the L-39 and what you get from this module, and then I also want to talk a little bit about trainers / light attack craft in DCS in general, and what you get from blades like the L-39 Hawk and C-101 or the upcoming AT-27, which I am also very excited about as it will be the first turboprop plane in DCS. And theorycraft a little bit about what in my opinion could be done to make this type of plane a little bit more desirable in the sim than it is right now. As there are some that say that planes like that are not that well suited for DCS and that they would prefer more pure high-tech combat planes instead. Now that's not an opinion that I subscribe to, as I like the variety, and in a simulator like DCS for me it's about the joy of flying different aircraft and learning them and how to best use their abilities, even if they are lower technology. And I don't care so much about how powerful they are. And there are many of those lower tech or light attack aircraft that I do find very interesting, the L-39 being among them. And trainers do have a history of also being used in combat. The L-39 was of course, and another example that at the moment comes to mind would be for example T-28 prop trainers that were used in the Vietnam War. I just read a biography of a pilot that flew those in Vietnam, so there are certainly options for scenarios where those planes fit very well, though I would like to see some more AI ground units to support those scenarios as well. But let's talk about the L-39 a bit first. Now let me start by saying that a trainer and light attack aircraft like the L-39 is of course a module that is aimed more at enthusiasts, I would think, as its ability in combat are limited, so not a plane that is recommended as a first module, despite the fact that it is a trainer. It's a plane you get because you enjoy flying it, or you want a challenge and see what you can do in a fight with a plane that has a more limited armament. Having said that, I do enjoy to fly this plane a lot. It's fun to fly and you can build lower tech scenarios where this plane does fit quite well. Also, with the F5 Tiger just being released, we have a lot of lower tech MiG-21 versus F5 servers, where planes like the L-39 in a light ground attack role also fits well enough and is often featured in those servers. Now, the L-39 Albatross is a Czech jet trainer and was developed in the late 60s and entered service in the early 70s, and subsequently went into service as the main jet trainer in many countries, especially Eastern Bloc countries at the time. Being a trainer and therefore a cheaper plane with a weaker engine, the L-39 does provide an interesting mix of flight characteristics which you don't usually find in a combat simulator. The plane is a jet of course, yet being a trainer from the 70s, it is pretty slow for a jet. As a matter of fact, its top speed, especially when carrying external stores like gun pods, is not that much higher than the top speed late World War II fighters could manage, and the thrust-to-weight ratio is also not particularly impressive. The Albatross is of course very lightweight, with relatively low wing loading, about comparable with that of early jet fighters like the Sabre or the MiG-15, though with a straight wing instead of a swept one. So the L-39 is maneuverable and just lots of fun to fly. As a result, it is also a common choice for jet aerobatic teams, both in reality as well as for virtual aerobatic teams in DCS, and it is this maneuverability and ability in aerobatic maneuvers that certainly is a reason why I like this plane so much, since I enjoy just flying around a bit every now and then and do some aerobatics and training to improve accuracy when flying and maneuvering, and also to just have fun. The L-39 is a riot to throw around in the sky. It is also relatively forgiving in the sense that it is hard to really lose control of the plane and get it into a spin. However, the plane with its thin and straight wings doesn't like high angles of attack too much, and it will warn and drop a wing as I reach critical angle of attack relatively quickly. The maximum angle of attack is much more limited than what you might be used to from other jet fighters in DCS. So while the plane won't depart controlled flight too easy, which makes it safe, doing tight maneuvers in it smoothly and energy efficient without the plane warning, dropping a wing as it reaches AOA limits, does require a bit of finesse from the pilot, which makes the L-39 a very good trainer. One thing you hear often about the L-39 in DCS is that it is a pilot plane and it can teach a pilot, and I would say this is very much true. With no fly-by-wire system on the L-39 keeping you from going too close to your AOA limit, and the plane's limited angle of attack to begin with, not having leading edge extensions or delta wing designs which allow for higher angles of attack, and the plane's tendency to drop a wing when getting to the limit, mean that the pilot needs to learn how far he can push it in a turn or a maneuver, for example, to get the best turn rate, the most maneuverability out of the plane in a given situation without pulling too hard and going over the AOA limit and losing lots of energy while wobbling around all over the place. I found that practicing dogfights versus F-86 Sabres in the L-39, for example, are a good way to improve your feeling for the plane. You need to turn tight to beat the Sabre's turn rate, but keep it smooth at the same time to keep your energy up as high as possible as your plane has a weaker engine. With that weaker engine and the resulting low thrust-to-weight ratio, the energy management is also an important factor when doing dogfights or maneuvers in the L-39. So, long story short, the plane is simply very good at teaching newer pilots to maneuver smoothly and energy efficient, and having more energy is almost always a plus, even in modern fly-by-wire jets. As a matter of fact, I saw flankers get destroyed by MiG-21s in guns-only trainings, as the Su-27 pilot wasted all his energy using his super maneuverability in the first 5 seconds. Energy fighting is still an important skill to have, and one I feel is always getting ignored by many pilots in simulators. The L-39 is a good plane getting a feeling for that. It has to be said though that the World War II fighters available in DCS are great for learning that as well. In DCS we have 2 versions of the L-39. The L-39C, which I'm flying here, which is the basic trainer variant. In this configuration the jet is mostly used for flight training. It does come with 2 weapon pylons that can carry small S-5 rocket pods, for example, as well as light bombs or R-3 heat-seeking missiles. But those are meant primarily for training as well. With only 2 small rocket pods, the ground attack capabilities would be very limited, and while the C has heat-seeking missiles, the plane has very tight limitations when it comes to the amount of G-forces and angle of attack you can pull and still be able to fire those missiles, so you won't really use them in a dogfight. You have to fly pretty much straight. So the C model of the L-39 is mostly used for training and aerobatics or some pretty light combat missions. The second version is the L-39ZA, which, while still a trainer primarily, puts a stronger emphasis on also being usable in a light attack role. The ZA has 4 pylons on the wings instead of the 2 that you have on the C, as well as an internal 23mm cannon under the cockpit, the same gun you have also on the MiG-21 for example, and you also have a slightly higher selection of bombs to choose from, as well as the BK-3 gun pod you can hang under the wings. The BK-3 pods are unique to the L-39 in DCS and are just 3 7.62mm multipurpose machine guns in a pod, but you can carry 4 of them, giving you a total of 12 machine guns, which is by the way the same armament you find on many Hawk Hurricane World War II fighters. You can fire all those machine gun pods as well as the internal 23mm cannon at the same time, by the way, so the L-39 can put down a nice amount of lead in a very short time versus soft targets. The 23mm cannon is however very restricted when it comes to angle of attack. Above a certain AOE, the 23mm gun won't fire, which makes it pretty useless in a dogfight. The gun pods are also the best option for guns in a dogfight therefore, because they don't have the same angle of attack limitations you have on a 23mm cannon. Other than the guns, the L-39 can carry 4 S-5 rocket pods, which are of limited effectiveness as the S-5 are only 55mm rockets that don't pack much of a punch, but at least you can carry quite a lot of them. And as mentioned, a number of bombs you can also fit on the L-39, the biggest ones being 250kg bombs. Or you can also fit 100kg bombs that are equipped with a drag chute for low altitude drops for more accuracy. With that kind of armament, you can use the plane as a light attacker, especially in scenarios that are meant to portray lower deck conflicts. And I think the extra skill involved in using the unguided weapons and having to think about how to best utilize your limited ordnance is a fun thing to do in some scenarios. But of course the plane won't provide the kind of performance in combat you get from a dedicated combat plane. Now, that's a bit of an overview of the plane's basic capabilities. One very interesting feature that you also get on the L-39 and I haven't talked about yet is the multi-crew support. That is of course one of the big things about the module and a large selling point, the fully functional second seat in this two-seater, and it is a real cool feature that adds a lot of extra options and functionality to the module. But the implementation of this feature, as cool as it is, also has in my opinion one very big flaw. Now, the L-39 is at the moment the only DCS plane with multi-crew, though the feature is in development for many other aircraft as well and should be out for the Gazelle helicopter soon as well, and then also for multi-seat aircraft in development like the F-14 Tomcat or the AT-27 in the future as well. But the L-39 was the first plane where this was implemented and fleshed out over time. The rear seat in the plane is fully functional and you can fly the plane from the rear in the multiplayer and in co-op missions. The rear seat can be used as an instructor pilot seat to help someone improve their flying, and the L-39 is even equipped with a fully functional IFR hood for the front seat to train instrument flight. Having someone in the second seat can also be really useful in combat, as it gives you an extra pair of eyes looking for targets. For example, if you use the L-39 as a forward air controller aircraft, that helps a lot in finding targets, and of course in dogfights, which the L-39 is not really made for, but anyway, having someone in a dogfight in the second seat can help you keep an eye out on your rear while you engage a target and concentrate on hitting it. This is also a big advantage. That is also a thing that I think will play a big role in the F-14 Tomcat when it comes out and gets multicrew. So multicrew is a great feature, so what was the flaw I was talking about? Well, sadly at the moment the second seat is not free to play. Both pilots have to own the module in question. Which is also why I don't have any actual multicrew footage in this video, because when I was flying in the mission with the L-39 my buddy did not own the plane and therefore could not get in my plane. I hope I can do some actual multicrew footage at a later time though, in the L-39 or the Gazelle. Anyway, that both people in the aircraft need to own it in order for this feature to work is, in my opinion, especially on a trainer aircraft, diminishing the appeal of this feature a little bit. I have to say though that I'm not 100% sure if this is set in stone, or if there are changes planned to it in the future, and what exactly the reasons are at the moment for both pilots needing the full module. If those are financial considerations, which if they are wrong in my opinion, or if it is a technical problem that needs to be solved first. I'm guessing from what I have read that it is at least partially a technical problem, specifically an issue with the DRM I'm guessing, but I'm not sure here. But in any case, this is one of the things which I hope will change in the future in order to increase the appeal of trainer and light attack aircrafts like the L-39 in DCS. And that the second seat on multicrew aircraft becomes free to play after the owner of the module has initialized it. As I've said, especially for trainers, I would consider that to be pretty important. Being able to use the second seat to train people new to DCS and show them the rope, I'm sure, would be a very large selling point and incentive to buy the module. But players that need this kind of training will in many cases of course be new to DCS and maybe on their first module, or even free-to-play players. And as said at the beginning, the L-39 is more a module for enthusiasts, and there are just better options for new players when it comes to getting modules to start out with. So the whole I can be a virtual instructor pilot idea goes mostly out the window, because those needing mostly instructions won't have this plane. On the other hand, if the multi-crew feature would be free to play for a person if the owner of the plane initializes it, it would, I'm certain, sell significantly better, because being able to teach new players would be a selling point, and being able to take people on a ride even if they don't own this particular module would be a selling point. Also, it would be a great way to get friends and so interested in DCS when you can take them on a mission in the same plane and show them what a cool experience a simulator like DCS can be without them having to spend money first, and therefore help grow the community as a whole. So for me it would make perfect sense, not just from a gameplay perspective, but also from a financial perspective. But again, I don't know how big a problem this would be from a technical point of view. That is one of the things I think would help greatly increase the popularity of a plane like a L-39 or also the upcoming AT-27, for example. Something else which I think would help those kind of planes out a bit would be the introduction of a few more lower technology options for ground targets. The L-39 and similar planes in the ground attack role of course carry mostly light weapons and often with little or no help from any kind of ballistics computer to help with their deployment. At the moment, though, we do have a very nice and large selection of ground units in the game. They are mostly more modern armored units when they are combat units, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, APCs or self-propelled artillery pieces. That makes it a little bit more difficult to build missions with the L-39 and co in mind as air support units. Building an environment that is still dangerous and the air support is needed, but at the same time have targets that those planes can realistically engage and destroy. As with the S5, you need direct hits, often more than one, for even lightly armored vehicles, and even the 250 kg bomb, the largest one you can carry on the L-39, will need to land pretty close to an armored target to take it out, which is hard to do when you drop an iron bomb without any computer help. Only the Humvee and ZU-23 AA cannon mounted on the Euro truck come to mind as soft-skinned combat vehicles, which are well suited for this kind of environment. I would like to see some more lower technology options here. That would also help with the UE gunship missions, by the way. What comes to mind specifically are technicals, gun trucks, or lighter AA threats, like 50 caliber Tushkas or 14.5mm ZPUs. Those would make a good AA threat for lower deck aircraft and also work well for a Vietnam scenario for the UE. 50 cal and 14.5mm AA gun emplacements are very common in what is often called low-intensity conflicts like that. At the moment, you need vehicles like the BRDM to simulate them, which are armored and therefore harder to take out, or the ZU-23mm gun, which has more firepower. Having some more lower tech options here would make it easier to strike that balance of building a scenario that is challenging but also not too hard, where you can still get kills on ground targets. Towed artillery pieces would also be nice as targets, though I expect we get some of those when the World War II map comes out. Now another small thing I would like to mention is, while we're at it, I would like to see the effectiveness of the 30 caliber, that's 7.62mm, increased versus infantry, as both the gunbots on the L-39 as well as the Gatling guns on the UE seem to have a hard time versus infantry. Well, those are a few things I would like to see that would in my opinion help with the popularity of lighter planes like the L-39, which I do enjoy to fly quite a bit. Well, and this is it for this video. I hope it was informative, thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.